All right, so we're live. Okay, hey guys, back here, Bob Piercy, Henry Schein. Hope you're doing well today. And I'm back here with Rob Campbell. So we had a lot of great response from the last conversation Rob and I had, and so we wanted to get on and do this again. And Rob, I gotta say, man, I love the way we're coordinating. It's like we did this on purpose. Like two black shirts, like we're two good looking guys.
Johnny Cash times two. I like
Johnny
it.
Cash times two. That's right. So hey, first of all, real quick, things are good. How are you guys doing these days?
Doing great. Yeah, I continue to enjoy the nice weather we're having in town. And one advantage from working from home from me is I can usually find an hour or two to slip out for a walk during the day and get out and clear my head in the sunshine, which is great.
No, nice, good for you. Well, hey, I'm back at the office here recording this right now, and if you hear any banging in the background, I think someone's in the golf simulator right now. So I don't know if it's going to pick up on the mic or not. And so I can either be home with a 2-year-old recording these things, or I could be at the office and someone's using the golf simulator, which is for some reason never happens unless we're doing these videos. But anyways, just kind of I guess jumping back into things. So obviously, like we are where we are. It's late summer, it's August right now, and we are, coming up on the fall, and people are kind of curious what's going on. We're looking at our businesses, we're looking at the markets, what's happening. And, there was a huge correction, obviously, earlier in the year when COVID hit, and we talked about that last time. And, the markets have recovered, and they seem to be doing well, and they're moving in the right direction right now. I guess the question is, like, has the window lapsed? Is the opportunity to get back into the market gone? Have we lost those gains to be had right now?
It's a really good question, Bob, and there's kind of almost layers to it. And before I answer that, I think what might be useful for your viewers is to just make sure to touch on a couple of concepts. So first of all, when we hear about the market, often what we're hearing about is the S&P 500. So that's
right.
The most common sort of proxy for the market. And what that actually is it's a composite of the 500 largest companies in the US. So S&P 500, and people use that as a barometer for the market. Now, the little known fact that's really, really important is that index is market cap weighted. Now, what do I mean by that? What it means is the bigger the company, the more weighting it has and the more impact it has on that index. It's kind of funny. I would draw an analogy. Let's say you had, two jockeys and a morbidly obese man. And the jockeys weighed 100 pounds each, and the obese man weighed 400. To say that those three individuals had an average weight of 200 pounds is not very informative at all. You're losing a lot. And one of the problems with the S&P 500, because that market cap weighting, we've got companies like Apple and Amazon with market caps of over $1 trillion. These companies now are bigger than a lot of countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've just got a huge weighting on the index. So now, why is that important to note? Maybe what I'll do is I'll share a slide with you, if you don't mind, that'll kind of take me to the next point regarding that.
Please do. Yeah. Like I say, hey, pictures are always welcome here. So.
Okay. So what I'm going to share here, this is kind of interesting. So what you're seeing is to the performance of the S&P 500 for the 15 months ending in mid-April of this year. So this is kind of just after COVID. We'd seen markets start to turn around. The S&P 500 was still only up 6%, for the 15 months ended then. But what's fascinating, and they've even got an acronym for them now, the FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, they were up 56% over the same time period. Now, of course, those stocks are amongst the biggest in the S&P 500. So if those companies are up 56%, dragging the S&P up, you can imagine what the other 494 are doing. They're much more attractive from a buy perspective versus the FANG stocks.
So is this saying that basically the rest of the S&P 500, excluding those FANG stocks, are still potentially down?
Yeah, and so what we're seeing is the term for it, it's kind of an unusual term, but it's called a bifurcated market. So depending on what segment, certain segments of the market are grossly overvalued, certain segments of the market are really, really attractive. And maybe I'll use 2 other slides just to demonstrate that. And I'm going to start with a couple of those areas that are really overvalued. And it probably isn't a surprise to your viewers and people on the call. So first of all, apologies. So first of all, let's think about predictable stocks. And it's no shock that in COVID, our clarity on the future became really suspect, and we were all very worried about it. So the types of companies that people were rushing into was things like grocery stores or pharmacies, very, very predictable businesses. And so when you look at the most predictable companies in the S&P 500, the ones with, it's called the lowest beta, so less volatility, more predictability, their valuations started to skyrocket through COVID, and they really started to get driven up in price as people stampeded into the only businesses they wanted to buy, which is the really predictable ones. I shouldn't say the only businesses they wanted to buy, though, because of course there's also the big growers. So this is the FANG stocks, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google. Now, again, we saw this huge stampede into these massive companies because, of course, their businesses weren't hurt either. It's also really interesting. The last time you see those types of companies reaching valuations like they did was the height of the tech bubble in the late 90s, which, with the benefit of hindsight, we all remember how overvalued that companies were at that time.
Well, hey, I was in school at that time. I was in university at that time. So I remember hearing about
it. Those of us of my vintage remember it well.
So now, and going back quickly to those FANG stocks, like I remember hearing stuff just business-wise, once the downturn hit, that Facebook, for example, had lost millions of dollars in terms of ad revenue because companies had stopped advertising on Facebook. So so I'm wondering if those FANG stocks even were being carried by like the likes of Amazon and online retailers as more so than just like something like Facebook.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So first of all, some of those companies did have a bit of a blip in performance, but it wasn't very significant, and most of them have recovered. And really, that's a testament to how resilient and strong those businesses are. Now, one of the things you have to be aware of, though, is whenever you're investing in a company, there's two things you have to consider. One is, what do you get? Number two is, what are you paying for it? And you can invest in the world's greatest company, but if you overpay for it, it's still a bad investment. And so when we look at, this is an example on the slide here of a few of the sort of most popular type of businesses through COVID. Undoubtedly, they're phenomenal businesses. They're very predictable. They're doing really, really well. But I want to kind of compare this to a dental practice. So what you see is something called a price earnings ratio. I know you're probably familiar with this, Bob, but some of your viewers may not. So if you were going to buy a dental practice, let's say that dental practice was earning $200,000 a year after paying for costs and paying for staff and everything else. Now, if you went up to make an offer on that, what would you be willing to offer? Maybe $1 million, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Now, a business that's earning $200,000, if you offer $1 million for it, that's what we call a price earnings ratio. So you're paying a multiple of 5 times earnings.
Right.
Now, if you were to offer $2 million for that business, you're paying 10 times earnings. Now, imagine paying $10 million for a dental practice that's generating $200,000 a year.
On speculation that it's going to grow or produce.
The only thing that would justify that is if in your mind you thought this dental practice could grow those earnings from 200,000 to 400,000 to perhaps 2 million in a few years. Now, that would be truly a phenomenal dental practice. Now, let's go back to those companies we were considering. Undoubtedly, these companies are growing faster than the rest of the market. However, do you really think that from where Netflix is today, can they grow their earnings 5-fold over the next few years or 10-fold? And maybe some of them can, but there's a lot of companies out there that can't. And that really leads us kind of to where the opportunity is. So what I might do is, switch gears from picking on these companies and talk about where the opportunity is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that was actually my next question is, like, if this isn't where we should be putting our money, where should we be putting it?
Okay. So this is really interesting. We call this the survivorship spectrum. And so it's really kind of come home to roost here in 2020. Again, there's a lot of nervousness around, are we going to see a second round of COVID or a second wave? What is the impact going to be? And so as a result, and I've already touched on it, as people are redeploying in the markets, what they've been doing is buying obvious survivors, the types of companies that we've talked about. Now, where we really see the opportunity currently is with some non-obvious survivors. Now, remember how I talked about the S&P 500 and the S&P 494, the stocks other than the FANG stocks?
Right. Yep.
Well, of those 494, there's a number of businesses out there that either aren't impacted by COVID or maybe even benefited from COVID, but yet they're just not as well known. And so those non-obvious survivors is really where we see the capital deployment opportunity right now. All that to say, though, back to your original question, the opportunity is not gone. So yes, the S&P 500 has rallied a bit, but if you just dig a little deeper and start looking at the segments of the S&P 500, we're seeing tremendous opportunities to deploy capital prudently with a 3 to 5 year time horizon currently.
Okay, so there's opportunity in the market. We just have to go look for it in the non-obvious places.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And be really careful. It's interesting. Not to say you can't make money in the Facebooks and the Amazons. You can, but at some point that tide could turn, excuse me, and you could wind up losing a lot of money. Now, again, people of my vintage learned this the hard way in the late 90s. So I mentioned the tech bubble. So that, of course, was the advent of the internet, and any internet type business was going crazy, much like sort of social media based businesses today. What's fascinating though, when you look back at it and you think about Cisco. So Cisco was effectively the plumbing of the internet, the routers and everything else. And I'm not a tech guy, so I'm probably butchering that, but Cisco's building the framework of the internet. Hard to imagine a better business to be in at the inception of internet use in society 20 years ago. But the interesting thing is, if you invested in Cisco in 1999, you've lost money. Now, the reason you've lost money is not because Cisco's done poorly. They've tripled their earnings. They've more than tripled their revenues. The problem is people were dramatically overpaying. So it was a great business that's been a bad investment the next 20 years. Our worry is that may happen with some of these FANG stocks. We're not sure which ones, we're not sure which time horizon, but we see far greater opportunity to invest like a business person, like you and I would, or your clients would if they were looking at buying a practice. You're not going to pay 10 million for a practice with 200,000 of earnings, regardless of how great it's growing. You're going to pay a reasonable amount based on that earnings outlook.
No, and hearing you say these words today, it makes sense. And the Facebooks, the Amazons, like the Shopifys of the internet, like they're definitely sexy and appealing, and it sounds fun to be invested in those fun companies that seem to be doing something, as opposed to something that's like might be a bit more solid move and a better move. But again, it's not as sexy, not as interesting to talk about or brag about how your investment's doing when it's something that's boring.
Yeah, and of course, as you know, Bob, with our practice and our firm, we specialize in dealing with people's real money, their retirement savings. So, if someone's messing around and there's a ton of, another interesting area of the market today is electronic vehicles, and that's getting a lot of play. And there's some really interesting opportunities, but it's important to differentiate speculating from investing. When we're dealing with somebody's life savings, you want to be investing, you want to be doing that prudently, and top of mind should be downside risk for you. Now, if you're speculating with some of your fund money and seeing if you can, double your investment in Amazon or Tesla over the next while, more power to you, but just don't go into it without some prior knowledge that there's some downside risk there and risk of permanent loss of capital if things don't turn out appropriately.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. I guess right now, so the good news is, like you said, that there is opportunity in the market. So if people haven't gotten in yet, so say they're gun shy earlier because of just the unknown, which makes sense, there still is opportunity to get in now. And you're saying too, regardless of a second wave or potential third wave of COVID, it is still better to have your money smartly invested in the market than opposed to in the bank or under your mattress where it's not doing you any good.
Absolutely, Bob. Interest rates are so low today that sitting on cash is just not a great place to be. We can perhaps address that and amongst a few other things in future episodes. But I would really encourage people to understand that there's still a phenomenal long-term opportunity available right now. There's opportunities out there to invest prudently within the market, and opportunities to protect capital in the event of a second wave through being in the right areas of the equity market, but also using some of the tools that you and I have discussed in other episodes. And as always, as you know, our team is open for business. We really value our partnership with you. In respect of that, as you know, we relax our minimums and offer a fee discount for any of your clients. All of that to say, if anyone viewing this today is not satisfied with their performance through COVID, or is feeling concerned about potential risk levels in their portfolio, we'd be happy to connect with them and offer some complementary analysis and perhaps a look at some of the risks in the portfolio that they may not be aware of.
And thank you for saying that. Yeah, what I'll definitely do is, again, like last time, in the body of the email down below, we'll include your contact information, so anyone that has any questions can reach out to you directly. Also, if there's any questions or ideas on things that you guys want to hear about in a future conversation, like let me know, and Rob and I can kind of discuss and kind of make things and tailor things towards what you guys want to hear and are curious about. So, hey, Rob, I think unless you've got anything else you want to say, and if you do, please get it in there and let us know. But
yeah, I'll quickly add one more thing, Bob, before we wrap, and that is just to say that one of the things I really enjoy about my partnership with you and with Henry Schein is we try to take a holistic approach to our clients' wealth management and their financial well-being, whether that's tax planning, retirement planning, or managing the portfolio. What I admire about your approach to things and the Henry Schein approach to things is you guys are also taking a holistic approach to your client's dental practice and looking at all facets of improving it and working with them to secure their financial future. So thank you for the opportunity. As always, I'm honored to work with such a great firm and team like yourself and Henry Schein. So thank you, Bob.
Well, Rob, thank you for saying that. The check's in the mail, and no, again, hey, it's mutual. Absolutely, it goes both ways. Appreciate everything you're doing for us and for our clients too. So again, if there's any questions out there, please let me know. Let Rob know, and again, we'll go from there, guys. So hey, have a great day, Rob. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Okay.
Take care.
Hey, bye for now.